Welcome to New York's #2 sports show. The Rangers lose to the Winnipeg Jets in a shootout by a score of 3-2 at Madison Square Garden, where Dylan Garand makes his NHL debut in net for the Rangers, made 35 saves. He was very impressive. Someone that was drafted by the Rangers back in, I believe it was 2020 for Dylan Garand. 2020 fourth round. So he's been in the system. It's come close as far as Garand, getting into game action. Like, he's been called up and just hasn't come to fruition. And now it does. And I'd say in part because Jonathan Quick is day to day with an upper body injury. When Garand was called up, the reports were that the Ranger goaltending was banged up. And it's interesting because in my mind, in that Columbus game, it kind of did seem like Shesterkin was, kind of grimacing at times a bit. But apparently Garand had said that he knew on Wednesday. So, which Quick had started Wednesday against the Devils. So maybe something happened with Quick. And also, look, Quick has not been good at all. So there could be some sort of gamesmanship going on in terms of, maybe Quick is really mostly healthy. Maybe he's slightly banged up, but you combine the fact that maybe they do really want to get Garand in there finally. And, Quick has been struggling and you add it all up. And it makes sense for Dylan Garand to play down the stretch here. And in a back-to-back situation, Garand gets the start. And to be honest with you, you could argue that he was the reason why the Rangers got 8 points. Now, I'm glad they didn't get 2 points, but good for Garand. Really, the only time he struggled was the shootout. Look, that's a tough spot to be in. Winnipeg makes both attempts successful in the shootout. Kyle Connor and Gabe Vilardi being the ones to do it. But yeah, Rangers really were outplayed for the most part here. This was an improvement upon the last couple of games, but again, the Rangers easily could have gotten 0 points. On the other hand, like, they were in a position where they may have gotten 2. I mean, you look at overtime, the Rangers had a power play for 2 minutes, 4-on-3, and don't score. And, just thinking more recently, and maybe this existed more than just this time I'm bringing up, but first game out of the Olympic break against the Flyers, they had a power play, and then right after it ended is when the Flyers won it. So, what's a little bit frustrating there, but not surprising, right? Not surprising is that the guy that got taken off the 4-on-3 was Lafreniere. So it was Miller, Trocheck, Fox, and Zibanejad. Again, I'm not surprised in any way, but it just shows, like, kind of the mindset, right, of the coaching staff. And I know it's a common thing, right? I mean, most NHL head coaches in that situation probably do the same thing. And then the shootout, like, again, the shootout is its own sort of thing, and I don't have a problem with it. But I could see, they go with Trocheck and Miller. They both don't score. Now, here's the thing, and I'm not going to go so far into the shootout. And to be fair, Trocheck, I think, was 3 for 3 this season in the shoot, and JT Miller had scored in the shootout as well earlier on. It was interesting that this is a total side note. Mika Zibanejad, the Rangers had 4 shootouts. Now, look. Let's look at this game, for example. There was only 2 shooters, right? That happens a lot. Like, the Rangers have not been in many shootouts to begin with, and the ones they've been in, I want to say, have all ended at most in 3 full rounds. But it's interesting, as Zibanejad, who has been a regular, it had been some combination of Panarin, Miller, and Trocheck, and that remains the same here, where it was Trocheck and Miller. But my point is that, Lafreniere has had some decent success in the shootout. Not a whole lot. I think he's like maybe 3 for 9 in his career. But a guy like him, Gabe Perreault, it would just be nice to give them opportunity, but it's just unfortunate not the way that they think. Even though the ironic thing, and again, not the shootout so much, but like on that 4-on-3 power play, yeah, honestly, some of the younger kids probably do give you literally a better chance of being successful now than in going with the tried and true veterans, right? So that's all. You want to see as much as you possibly can, younger players getting opportunity like Dylan Garand, right? That's a good thing. And he actually played quite well against a Winnipeg Jets team that the Rangers had just beaten a week and a half ago in Winnipeg, 6-3. Winnipeg exacts some level of revenge, and they're just trying, in a Western Conference where the last one or two playoff spots doesn't require that many points. Winnipeg finds themselves somehow still in it. Again, I don't think they'll make it. It's a bit of a long shot, but there is some hope there for them. A team that won the President's Trophy last season, and still have, and you look at their lineup, and for the most part, it's a lot of those same players. Um, you know, and they've been a pretty successful regular season team recently. And Connor Hellebuck wasn't in that. Connor Hellebuck, struggled in that Ranger game. I felt like, I mean, certainly statistically, very much did. And Winnipeg was coming off this a back-to-back situation, um, where they lost yesterday in a matinee game in the shootout to Pittsburgh, which is ironic because Pittsburgh has been terrible in the shootout. Getting Sidney Crosby back helps for sure, and that's a reason. But Winnipeg, they were 1-4 in the shootout going into this game against the Rangers. The Rangers were 3-0. So, look, there's a little bit of a Dylan Garand effect, as compared to Igor. There's no question about that. But Garand, makes 35 saves on 37 Winnipeg shots. So a good outing for him. And I'm sure we'll see him again. I wonder what the plan is, right? If Jonathan Quick is going to be healthy, I just wonder how they're going to divvy this up, right? Right now you have, what is it, 12 games to go or 11? 12. 12 games left. Tomorrow night certainly figures to be Shesterkin against the Senators, and we'll talk about that game after we go through this Winnipeg one. But I don't know. Is there a chance that we've seen less Jonathan Quick? I think we have to say that's possible, whether it be for health-related reasons, Dylan Garand reasons, or performance. But I don't know. Chances are we'll probably see him again. But then how do you work in the three goalies? Will be interesting to see for sure on the goalie front. Other Ranger news that isn't relevant for this game, but the Rangers have signed defenseman Drew Fortescue to an entry-level contract. So similar to Gabe Perreault last year, also Boston College, I think we're probably going to see Fortescue very soon. Maybe as soon as tomorrow versus Ottawa, right? If not then I would think at Toronto on Wednesday he'll debut. So Fortescue, he was a third-round pick in 2023. Look, not a guy that has a whole lot of offensive upside, but I think is someone that, can be in the mix as a third pairing left side defenseman. And look, especially not that it shouldn't matter that much, but with Vakanainen week to week, and by the way, that has come out as well. That Vakanainen is week to week, Noah Laba is week to week. So when you get this deep into the season, you don't know, right? Whether we will, there's still probably a little bit of time where if it truly is week to week, then presumably, you may see a Laba or a Vakanainen by season's end, but it's more than day to day, right? So they'll be out for a little bit here. And so Connor Mackey has been manning that, third pair left side spot and not playing all that much. Like in this game, only 12 and a half minutes. And so I wouldn't be shocked to see Fortescue get the call. Although, again, I'm kind of torn on whether he gets thrown into the Ottawa game or Toronto. The Ottawa one, that's a tough first game against a really hot Senator team that's right in the thick of the Eastern Conference playoff race. So they may opt to hold him out and go with that Toronto game just in terms of maybe getting, not that the Rangers would practice on Tuesday coming off a back-to-back, but maybe him individually can get some things in. So point is, we're going to see him soon. So it makes it interesting. They burned off a year of his ELC. That's what they did with Perreault. I don't love doing that, just from a value to your team and moving forward. But what can't be quantified is the experience gained here. And so if you have them, you might as well use them. Now, in the case of Perreault, the Rangers, he was in there at the end of last year a little bit, but I think he was healthy scratch as well. And, it was a little bit different then as the Rangers were still kind of clinging on to brief, barely playoff hopes. I mean, that was a team that was really sinking, but, with the East being what it was last year is a little bit different. Where now Fortescue, no reason to not play him, right? I mean, what's the point of Connor Mackey being in there. And again, it speaks to Vince Iorio. I think they've kind of soured on him. I understand there's a left side, right side component here that is very much in play. But yeah, Drew Fortescue might be, Will Borgen's partner, right? They've gone Gavrikov, Fox, Robertson, Schneider, and now it's Mackey replacing Vakanainen with Borgen, maybe Fortescue. But that's a conversation maybe for tomorrow, maybe for a little bit after that. And as far as the forwards go, it was really what we saw last game. Same exact thing where you saw Parson, another player who really is not realistically part of the plans. He's under contract next year, but he was waived earlier this season. They gave him another chance. Didn't really do a whole lot with it after the Sam Carrick trade. By the way, Sam Carrick's been fantastic for the Buffalo Sabres. I think he has like 5 goals in maybe about 8 or so games as a Sabre. So yeah, pretty much it was the same lines, right? Where they keep JT Miller in the middle. That was one of the better lines, probably. I mean, Miller, we'll talk about it. Miller, kind of an up and down game for him, but Ty Kartye, and Connor Sherry really have done a nice job. Laba was in the middle for a while. Now it's JT Miller. You move up Radish. Again, the Trocheck line with, whoever the Trocheck Cooley combination is just nothing, honestly. And then you throw Radish out there. That's if you want to consider that the second line, which it probably is, quite honestly, based on ice time, I'd say it really is. Yeah, just not great. And the fourth line didn't play much at all, which I don't really totally understand. Like, I don't care about Brodzinski so much, but you do have Edstrom and Hamelash, younger players that you kind of want to give a look to, and it's not as if the rest of the team was killing it. So yeah, you're looking at 7 minutes for Edstrom, 6 minutes for Hamelash, 6 minutes for Brodzinski. Just not a whole lot. And again, tough to tell with the so few ice time, but I think Edstrom was the center on the line, but it could have been Brodzinski either way. But yeah, like really not getting a look. And Taylor Radish playing almost 18 minutes. I just don't really understand that. So that's kind of, again, that's the stuff I kind of look to, and that's where it's frustrating. Let me see what Hamelash can do. You want to try Edstrom at center. I don't know if it's going to work in the long run, but fuck it. Like, I'm fine with that. But this is the path that they choose to take. And so, yeah, again, a game between, it's not the Connor Hellebuck, Igor Shesterkin matchup we saw in Winnipeg. And I think for Winnipeg, Eric Comrie has been playing very well. I think Comrie at this point, he's been the more effective option. And who knows, maybe there's a it's been a tough year for Hellebuck just in general, coming off of an amazing regular season, raising season in general last year. And Hellebuck obviously was brilliant in the Olympics. And maybe there's a little bit of fatigue going on there. And Comrie's done a nice job. And really, even though Garand was the one more challenged, Comrie made good saves as well. There were really some good opportunities on both sides. But this was the first period where Winnipeg was the better team. And for the Rangers with first periods lately, except for very brief, games, it's a matter of, it's going to be low event on the Ranger offensive side, but the question is on both sides. But sometimes it is where it's just kind of nothing for either team. This is the first period where Winnipeg outshoots the Rangers 11-4. It wasn't complete annihilation. Like, that shot count makes it seem like it was, but Winnipeg was clearly the better team, right? Rangers didn't generate a whole lot. JT Miller did have one opportunity where he did it to post in tight, which then I think soon thereafter led to, at 6:26, Ty Kartye being called for roughing Cole Perfetti. What happens here is Perfetti hits Connor Sherry to the boards. They don't call it. They could have, right? They certainly could have called a penalty on Connor Sherry. They don't. And Kartye goes in and goes after Perfetti. And then I think it was Adam Lowry, who I think then goes after Kartye. But, all said and done, it's a Winnipeg power play. I think the right call there, probably, it should have maybe been even. Whether it be if you called the initial hit by Perfetti, they miss it. But then, Kartye definitely deserved a penalty for sure. But and nothing. Look, he was being a good teammate there. I have no problem with him doing that. But I think what Larry did as well would have necessitated that as well. Winnipeg gets a power play and they don't score on it. Now, the Rangers do allow a power play goal in this game. The penalty kill has not been good lately. And that was kind of the case again here. Again, look, Winnipeg goes 1 for 4. They didn't go crazy, but another situation where they allow one. But that was later on. Earlier at 13:06, Winnipeg takes a 1-0 lead. Adam Lowry scores his 5th goal of the season, assisted by Velarde and Perfetti. And this was a play where JT Miller gets a little too aggressive, where Adam Fox bats the puck out of the air as Winnipeg's coming into the Rangers zone. You have Gavrikov and Fox in the positions they need to be in at that time. And in some ways, Fox, who, was trying to do the right thing by batting it down, it ends up kind of hurting the flow of the play where JT Miller goes after the puck carrier and it leaves Velarde wide open. And Gavrikov tries to make up for it, but there was just no time. Easy pass, Velarde to Lowry, nothing Garand can do about it. And Winnipeg takes a 1-0 lead. That would be the score after one. So the Jets have a 1-0 lead, but the Rangers tied up right away at the start of the second period, and it's Kartye. Scores his 6th goal of the season. Again, that's combined between the Rangers and the Kraken, and JT Miller gets the assist there at the 41-second mark. As far as Kartye goes, 8 points in 12 games as a Ranger, 3 goals, 5 assists. Like, really, he has been a big-time bright spot. And a really, look, Chris Drury's done a lot of things wrong. Just, a really good waiver claim there. Not sure exactly why Seattle did this, but they do. And Kartye, look, that was someone, it's rare that, I'm somewhat intrigued by a waiver claim. That was the situation where I was. Whereas Vincent Iorio, for example, didn't really think much of that. Kartye has a little bit of a resume here, and he is showing that he is going to be a part of the mix next year on some level. In that bottom 6. It's just, that's the way it looks right now. Kind of ways to go, but he's performing. And give JT Miller some credit on this one. A little bit of an extra effort play by Miller to get the puck to Kartye, where Miller stuck with it and basically poke checked it away, I think from Velarde possibly, and it goes to Kartye, and he snaps it past Comrie, and it's tied up at 1. Then at 5:22, Taylor Radish slashes Kyle Connor at 5:22. Again, Taylor Radish, he's under contract next season, but if there's a way for that to not be the case, I think that's for the best. Taylor Radish, again, he's not horrible. He's an NHL player. He will, this is not like an NHL caliber guy, but his role is, way too much. Again, a lot of that is like a post-trade deadline sort of thing, right? You naturally, although it's not the Rangers traded off that many people to be fair, but yeah, that's just kind of what it is. Radish takes this penalty here, and Winnipeg does score on the power play. It is Velarde on a nice passing play. 27th goal of the season from Connor and Morrissey at 6:43. So Winnipeg gets into the Rangers zone and just sets up quickly. And it was Miller and Kartye with Robertson and Schneider. Connor finds Velarde just open in the slot, and he fires it past Garand. Now, give Garand some credit, and the timing is probably off here, but I'm just jumping to it. There was a point in time when it was 2-1. And now, actually, no, I think it is actually just about the right timing here, where Kyle Connor has a breakaway and doesn't score. Kyle Connor had a rough game. Now, he ends up, but look, Kyle Connor, to be fair, though, does get a nice assist on the Velarde power play goal. He does get the shootout winner, so he was very much involved. But I felt like Connor the puck was just, nothing was crisp, it seemed like, with him. And Garand made some good, he made a nice poke check stop on Kyle Connor at this point. Connor, later in the game, Trocheck had a bad turnover late in regulation, and Connor was unable to get a shot on net. Kind of goes backhand, and it goes over the net. But anyway, so Winnipeg, again, has that chance to make it 3-1. You get an initial penalty on Hayden Fleury interfering with Alexi Lafreniere at 9:40. That is killed off. But at 12:56, Cole Perfetti trips Yaroslav Hamelish. So again, Hamelish, didn't play much, but draws a penalty, which leads to a power play goal, and it's Mika Zibanejad scoring his 30th goal of the season, assisted by Fox and Miller. So give JT Miller 2 points on the game. So at 14:03, just the patented Zibanejad slap shot, where Fox is able to find him right in his wheelhouse, and he is able to score past Comrie. Now, with Zibanejad, and this will be talked about tomorrow, he is slated to play his 1,000th NHL game against Ottawa, which is pretty cool. The team that drafted him, the team that he started with, was traded to the Rangers from the Senators. That's how it lines up. So, that'll be more of a conversation for tomorrow. I'm sure that, there'll be a small, typically the theme, it's been a while now they've done this, where they'll do a little thing for Mika. Now, I got to think about it. Maybe it's not done before the game, but whether it be tomorrow or soon thereafter, they'll do a little something for Zibanejad for his 1,000th NHL game. So yeah, that ties it up at 2. What if they took the one penalty, but they were playing with fire, take another one? The Ranger power play has been pretty good for the most part, even in the post-Panarin Rangers. So 2-2. Um, and it was a better period for the Rangers. They outshot Winnipeg 16-14. That was one where, you kind of left the second period saying, all right, like maybe the Rangers with Winnipeg hadn't played the day before. Maybe the Rangers are the superior team in the third. That was not the case. Winnipeg was the better team in the third. They outshot the Rangers 11-5. Um, and eventually, Matthew Robertson, high six, Kyle Connor at 12:54. But Winnipeg can't really get much going on that power play. Not a whole lot of great chances. And so the score remains 2-2. And again, there were some opportunities for the Jets late. They don't score. We go to overtime. And this is a big game. Look, in terms of the tank, this was a big head-to-head matchup because Winnipeg, while I believe, in my opinion, that they will finish ahead of the Rangers, which is a good, again, view that wording as a good thing. It is pretty close right now, right? And so, in and of itself, for it to go to overtime, you don't love the Rangers getting a point, but at least Winnipeg gets a point, and then it gets made better eventually. But at 139, Mark Scheifele interferes with Vlad Gavrikov. Pretty bad call. And again, the bad, look, it wasn't as if, the bad calls went both ways. Like I said before, I think the Rangers may have gotten screwed earlier on with the whole, miss hit on Sherry, that Kartye got the penalty, but Gavrikov was the one that kind of was the aggressor. Scheifele, really didn't do a whole lot. And I think because it led to a good Winnipeg chance is why the whistle was blown. I think if it didn't, I think that they let that go. But the Rangers have a power play, 2-minute, 4-on-3, and just don't score. And really didn't get that many great chances either. And so Winnipeg kind of just hangs on at that point. And again, they went with Miller, Trocheck, Fox, Zibanejad, and Lafreniere was the odd guy out from the original power play Unit 1 5-man crew. Soon thereafter, speaking of Lafreniere, he hooks Mark Scheifele. The penalty is at 4:48, but in reality, it really occurred about 30 to 35 seconds before that. So if Winnipeg was smart, they should have given up the puck and had a 4-on-3 power play. They don't, and so it's a delayed penalty, 5-on-4, and they only end up getting 12 seconds. There was a couple of chances that they got, which goes to show you, but they opt to kind of not give up the puck, and they don't score on those 12 seconds of a 4-on-3. We go to the shootout. The one thing I've noted in the shootout, again, not a big deal. The most recent one against Pittsburgh, I believe, Rangers decided to go second, and that must have been a Shesterkin-related situation because it was post-Panarin, and they decided to go second in that one. Here they go first, and like I said, and it's possible that I'm forgetting. So the Rangers shootout wins. Let me just think about this for a moment here, but I don't want to think too long about it. I know it was Columbus where they won early in the year. I think Pittsburgh was yes, Pittsburgh was the most recent one. They beat the Flyers, was the second one that had happened, I think in December. Okay, so back to my point. In the Pittsburgh game, they decided, okay, that's what it was, right. The home against Philly, I think they went first. The Pittsburgh game, they went second. And the only difference between that game and this game, which is a big one, is it wasn't Shesterkin. So they decide to shoot first. Again, it's just interesting to see those tendencies and what they want to do. And it was a perfect shootout for Winnipeg, who had lost the day before in the shootout. It starts out with Vincent Trocheck, who, again, has been just money, really in breakaways this year and in the shootout. He was, I think, a perfect 3 for 3 and has a good, in his career, he's very good in the shootout. He doesn't score. He tried to wait out Karma. He probably should have pulled the trigger quicker, and backhand doesn't score. Kyle Connor does finally get it past Garand. 5-hole. JT Miller, I don't know why he went with a similar move to Trocheck when it didn't work. Just on the other side, different handedness. Both were unsuccessful backhand attempts against Comrie, and then Gabe Velarde, who had scored in regulation, who's done well against the Rangers in his career, scores. So, Garand, it was a rough go in the shootout for sure, but he really was absolutely, the main star in this game for the Rangers, and a reason why the game got to where it did, right? Jonathan Quick's in that. I'm thinking that they're probably losing this in regulation. So now that is 4 losses in a row for the Rangers. As far as the tank goes, pretty decent things lately. And as I'm recording this right now, the Blackhawks are holding on to a 2-1 lead home against the Predators with 15 minutes to go in regulation. The Predators are really, they've made quite the run. They are right in there as far as the Western Conference playoff race, which is crazy to think about early on. I mean, the Rangers had their first regulation, had their first like home win of the season against at that time a really bad national team, but they've been pretty stingy lately, and so we'll see what happens during the rest of that game. If the Blackhawks somehow get the 2 points, which again they might not, then at that point the Rangers would be third as far as draft order pre-lottery. Then, if somehow, I'm not saying it's going to happen, probably won't, but tonight Calgary is home against the Lightning. If the Flames are able to somehow get 2 points in that game, then you could leave this night with the Rangers being second, which would be the ultimate goal, right? You're not catching Vancouver, that much we know. And realistically, I'm not that bullish on the idea of the Rangers catching Calgary. I think Chicago's possible. And what will really be key, like I keep on saying, the Rangers play the Blackhawks head to head in less than a week from now at Madison Square Garden. That will be crucial as far as who lands. Who knows? It could be a battle for third or fourth or something to that effect. But, Rangers give me a point. I'm okay with it. And part of why I'm okay with it is you look at tomorrow night's game. It's going to be a tough one for the Rangers facing an Ottawa team that is playing very well. They're good. Ottawa 7-2-1 in the last 10, 2-game winning streak, and they need the wins. Now, Shesterkin could be an X factor, but I talked about this. It didn't matter in that Columbus game. Right. This is the same situation kind of where second of a back-to-back for the Rangers. We know how the Rangers are struggling the second of back-to-backs. They're 1-9-1 overall now. This is their second to last back-to-back scenario this season. So logically, I thought the Rangers had more of a chance to win this game than the Ottawa game. Strange shit can happen, so you never know. And maybe Igor, who has done very well in his career against Ottawa, stands on his head. And one last thing to think about, and I don't know if it weighs in the players' minds at all. The last time they played Ottawa, the Senators embarrassed them at Madison Square Garden on January 14th, where Ottawa scored 8 goals, and then the letter came out. That was the last game before letter 2.0. So there's always that chance that is in the back of, their mind for just, not getting embarrassed like that. That could be real, but I just think Ottawa's, with where they're at and how they're playing, that's a tough one for the Rangers, but we'll see what happens. Again, now making 4 losses in a row. This one they get a point, but they fall 3-2 in a shootout to the Winnipeg Jets. Dylan Garand, though, NHL debut, did a really nice job. 35 saves, impressive. I'm pretty sure we're going to see him again here with 11 games left in the season, and who knows? Maybe Drew Fortescue. Maybe he makes his debut against the Senators, and if not then, soon thereafter. So again, final score for Madison Square Garden in a shootout. Winnipeg Jets beat the New York Rangers 3-2.